Hi everyone, Matt Bernier here for Weekend Wrap, taking a look back at the Grade 1 Woodbine Mile. It's a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Mile. And there was a good one that got out there and got the job done up north of the border at Woodbine Saturday afternoon. World approval as they break from the gate. He ultimately prevails here in the Woodbine Mile. You see him down. He broke from post position number 1. He will be forwardly placed beneath John Velasquez. And okay, all the horses get together in that sort of accordion effect as if there isn't really a lot of pace signed on. But when you look at the fractions, they were going honest enough early on, 23-3 for the opening quarter. Okay, that may be just sort of mediocre, but the half-mile fraction of 46-2, it's not as though they slowed this thing down at all. And you see World Approval out there. You see DeVille is also up there for Aidan O'Brien, coming off of that just so terribly disappointing effort in the Arlington Million where he had everything go his way. And meanwhile, you have a horse like Tower of Texas, who usually does his best running from the back of the pack. He's only a length off this thing down in the inside, sitting in the pocket trip. So a little bit of an odd situation as far as the way this race was run. And it was also delayed for about 3 minutes because of geese on the racetrack. But that's neither here nor there. Here we are, World Approval, moving very, very comfortably, very, very sweetly. Now you're seeing a couple of these other horses that are forwardly placed start to come off the bridle a little bit, and you wonder, now are we going to start to see the horses in that second flight, the Dutch Connections of the world, the Lancaster Bombers of the world, or even a horse in the white cap all the way in the back and the pink sleeves, long on value, has absolutely nowhere to go. Are any of them going to start taking over? No, World Approval is going to continue to find. He's going to kick away. Keep an eye on long on value, though. He finally does get out into the clear underneath Rosario, and he kicks home very, very nicely. Follows Mondi Elise there for a little bit. Guess what? None of these horses are any match for World Approval. World Approval gets the job done in the Grade 1 Woodbine Mile, and he does so very, very impressively. He pays $6.70 as your 2-to-1 favorite. Lancaster Bomber, a nice effort from the 3-year-old. He runs second and pays $5.30 to place. And long on value, I would say, certainly a horse to keep an eye on going forward for Bill Mott. He pays $5.30 to show. I'm not so sure he would have been able to possibly push World Approval on the win end, but boy, it would have been a heck of a lot closer, and I think he very clearly could have finished second had he been able to get out there. And it was nothing that Joel Rosario did wrong, just a bit of unfortunate racing luck. The $2 exacta comes back $42. $2 Triactor, if you played up north of the border, $398.40. World Approval is in career form for Mark Casse. They've done a tremendous job with this horse, and I think a lot has had to do with getting him back to these middle distances, proper middle distance. I'm talking 8 furlongs, really, essentially, 8 or 8.5. These are 2 consecutive Grade 1 victories for this horse. He's coming out of that big one up at Saratoga where he ran in the 4-star Dave over the complete bog. Then he shows up here, a 1-turn mile over nice firm ground. And guess what? He replicates that 108 buyer with another 108 buyer, and he earns a 127 time form U.S. rating. You look at his career record, 10 wins from 23 lifetime starts. He's earned over $1.8 million. He is a fantastic, fantastic racehorse, and you have got to look at him now as we get closer and closer to the Breeders' Cup. Mark Casse said it himself. We wouldn't change places with anyone right now as far as the Breeders' Cup Mile is concerned, and I can't blame him. I don't think I would either, and I have to look at this horse and say, you know what? If you didn't believe in him before as far as a proper top-level Grade 1 caliber animal, at this distance, you have to do it now because he has the ability to go and be forwardly placed, as we saw here in this race. He also has the ability to come from about 2 lengths out of it. He has that wonderful tactical speed, and it is the best trip in racing unless you're able to go out there outright on the lead. The best trip in racing is sitting the pocket, and he is capable of doing that on his best day. But it's also nice to know if you're going to give him the lead, he can take it and still finish. These are the incremental fractions that World Approval set himself. 23.79, 22.68, 23.84, and he came home in 22.74. This is a serious, serious racehorse, and if you don't include him or at least think about him come Breeders' Cup Mile time, I think you are making a major, major mistake because World Approval, right now, you've got to view him on that short list of contenders come Breeders' Cup Mile time. As for a horse like Long On Value, to me, I don't know if they're going to decide to go on to a race like the Mile or they're going to try to turn him back for the Breeders' Cup Sprint because Turf Sprint, I should say, because we know recently he's done most of his best damage at 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5 furlongs. It had been a long time since he'd been stretched out to a mile, and it's nice to see that the old boy can still do it. It's going to be fascinating to see. I think he is one that everyone that watches and does trip notes is going to have on their trip list because that was just a terrible situation, the way that the entire trip played out for him. But you do know that when he's right, and he gets some daylight, he can run. So it'll be fascinating to see where Bill Mott decides to go with this horse, because I think from a class standpoint, he certainly deserves an opportunity to run the Breeders' Cup. Again, 5 furlongs might be a little bit on the sharp side for him at Del Mar, but you never know. It'll be interesting to see what we get out of him. A little bit of a tough luck trip there for he and Joel Rosario. That is long on value, one to keep in mind if you're taking trip notes going forward. But let's just call a spade a spade. Nobody was beating World Approval on this day in the Woodbine Mile. He earns another Grade 1 victory. Now, this is a horse that has a Grade 1 at Woodbine. He has a Grade 1 victory at a mile at Saratoga, and he also has a Grade 1 victory going 1 3/8 at Monmouth Park. So this is a fantastic horse, fantastic training job from Mark Casse, great ride from John Velasquez on the front end. World Approval wins the Grade 1 Woodbine Mile. He earns a 108 buyer, and it's on to the Breeders' Cup.